Militarily Speaking, episode 25, Sandboxx.
This episode, we talk with Sergeant Sam Meek, co-founder and CEO of Sandboxx.
Welcome to Militarily Speaking, brought to you by Armed Forces Bank. This is Tom McLean and a somewhat cranky Jodi Vickery this afternoon. I don't think you like holidays.
Well, so
or coming back from
2 days worth
What's
of stuff into one day is problematic.
I know.
And I've only had one coffee. So
especially when you have overlapping meetings.
Yes. Yes. And they're on 14 different floors apart.
You know, before we get into the formal announcement of Sergeant Sam Meek, talk about the name Sandboxx real quick, just for our audience before we get into the questions.
Because
I like the story, and maybe I'm the only one.
Oh, Tom, appreciate that. Well, thanks for having me today, guys, and really do appreciate it. You know, all good ideas and all good creative thoughts usually start at about 1:30 in the morning in a bar. And I was hanging out with some friends of mine that went to the Citadel, and this has got to be 12 years ago now. This is early days. We were considering this idea of building a platform that would help our military community be successful. And we had names like Milk Connect and Bootlink and all these cheesy names that we were trying to settle on. And one of my dearest friends, Drew Jury, he was talking with another buddy that had went to Citadel, and they were talking about Facebook. And at the time, they referred to Facebook as Faceboxx. That was what they called Facebook at the Citadel. And I had probably spent the last couple of weeks, on, early formulation of what Sandboxx was, what we were going to create, but also coming up with a name for it. And as soon as he said Faceboxx, I said it in my mind. I said Sandboxx. And I said it again to myself a couple times. And it just kind of dawned on me that when you think about what the Sandboxx is, it's this place that we grow up in and we learn how to share. We learn a lot about ourselves with the Tonka trucks and the shovels. And that Sandboxx, I think, is an instrumental place for us to understand who we are and how we interact with this world. And when you join the military, you go through a second Sandboxx and you learn all about yourself again. You learn all about the toys and you learn all about leadership and the principles that make us human and make us successful warfighters. And that's that second Sandboxx, and which is why Sandboxx has 2 X's on it.
I like that story every time we've heard it.
It gets better every time he says it too. But I have an Instagram handle. It's called Boot Connect, but since it's so cheesy, I guess I'll have to change it now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you do Boot Connect with 2 C's, it'll be cool.
Right? Yeah, he's going to try and sell that to you, I'm sure, before the end of the podcast. So can I go ahead with the introduction?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm finished with Sam for now.
All right. So welcome, Sam. Apologies for Tom in advance. We're excited to have our listeners hear about you today. We've had the great joy of getting to know you over many months of different conversations, but I want to take just a little bit to introduce you. So bear with me. You probably know all of this. Appropriately and ironically enough, Sam was born on Veterans Day.
My daughter was born on Veterans Day.
Outstanding, Tom.
I know.
Yeah. Okay.
But she's brilliant.
She's brilliant. Well, yeah. Sam's brilliant. We know this to be true, too. So maybe everybody that's born on Veterans Day.
That's my last interruption.
Okay. Into a family with a long lineage of Marines. I feel like I should pause every sentence and wait for you to interject. No. Sam was a senior in high school when the devastating attacks on 9/11 occurred, and he immediately knew it was his time to carry on the family tradition and join the United States Marine Corps. The summer after he graduated high school, Sam enlisted and became a U.S. Marine and served as a nuclear, biological, chemical defense specialist. That means he is radically smarter than either one of us.
It's way fancier. The name is way fancier than it actually is.
Yes, that's like 3 different classes I tried to take in college, all crammed into one title. But so he spent his first years in service with the 2nd Marine Logistics Group at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, as a training instructor, where he kept the Marines proficient with their gas mask, chemical gear, and tactical capability. Sam then deployed to Iraq with Combat Logistics Regiment 25 as their MBC chief. After returning home, he extended his enlistment for an opportunity to join the 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion in Okinawa, Japan. 3rd Recon was slated for deployment to Fallujah, and Sam wanted an opportunity to work with world-class operators. Sam took a leadership role with 3rd Recon's S3 as the MBCD chief and NCOIC of the Recon Tactical Command Center. The Marine Corps sent Sam on 2 tours in Iraq, commonly called the Sandboxx,
Yeah, there it is.
in the military community.
Yeah.
After suffering from an injury during his second deployment, he was honorably discharged as a sergeant in the Marine Corps in 2007. So more than anything, thank you for your service. I appreciate all that goes with that. And I would love for you to transition from that point in your life to how you are here now talking about Sandboxx and delivering value back to the community that you've been a part of for so long.
Oh, well, Jodi, my time in the Marine Corps was incredibly precious and, still to this day, and I think forever will shape the way I personally make decisions and the way I carry myself and my values. It was through the thick and the thin, it was an incredible experience. And I absolutely love my Marines. I absolutely love my Marine Corps. And, I love the fact that I have the opportunity to continue to do something that supports our military community with Sandboxx. So I feel just incredibly blessed to, continue that service in a new light. As I mentioned, the thought behind, building a platform to help our service community be successful really started when I was introduced to Major General Ray Smith, who's my chairman and my co-founder. And he had seen over his 35 years in the Marine Corps a lot of pain and a lot of friction that existed for our Marine Corps spouses as they had to move from one duty station to the next, as they had to pull the kids out of school and change jobs. And, the trials and tribulations of being a military spouse is a tale of old as time, nothing new here. But the idea that we could create a platform that would help, them be more successful was really interesting. And so when we started digging into this problem set, we realized that the problem set was a lot bigger. There was no one that was holistically creating content and technology to help our military community be successful. There was no one thinking about today's user experience expectations on the mobile or on the web and the way that you could design intelligent features, content, and build a business around it. And that's where we saw a total white space ocean opportunity to build something completely new that allowed us to continue, our love of serving the men and women that serve this country. So that was the very beginning. We launched the apps really in 2015. We got the iOS app off the ground in 2014. Went to market. We were able to raise our pre-seed round with friends and family who invested in the company. And initially, we really did try to boil the ocean. We wanted to onboard the entire U.S. military. We wanted to, be the everything platform to help our service community be successful. And I think we recognize that, in order to do that successfully, we would need a lot more people. We would need a lot more practice in, understanding the problem sets. And we need to better define our go-to-market strategy. And so one of the things that we did early on was we thought about the friction points that existed for our military community at the beginning, especially in recruiting and basic training. And we saw that the two biggest problems was knowledge transfer. Really, how do you help the folks in the delayed entry program and their friends and family better understand the military journey? And two is the disconnectivity that happens at basic training because you're not allowed to take your phone with you. And we saw, those two as key areas for us to lean into. So on the content side of the house, we started thinking and developing around what are the things that you might want to better understand if you're a young woman who's joining the Marine Corps, or what are the things that you might want to better understand if you're, a new Navy dad whose son or daughter is 3 weeks from shipping to basic training. What type of content could we deliver? Where would it live? How would we measure it? So that was one side of it. The other was this disconnectivity at basic training. And we thought to ourselves, it might be interesting to enable friends and family to send a physical piece of mail to a loved one in basic training. And so we launched the app with, those two features along with a couple other things that we wanted to try. And those were the two things that really took off. And so the letters business, grew from early days. It was 1 or 2 letters that would come into the database that we would then print on the local printer in the office we had in Connecticut. We would take that letter to the post office, and Swami, who's my CTO, my COO, and co-founder, we'd throw a high five and have a beer at the end of the day and say, that's a good day's work.
Yes,
that's a good day.
Yes.
That's a good day's work. And then the next day, 2 or 3 letters would come in and we'd print them. And then the next day it was 5 or 6 letters. And the next day it was, 20 or 30. And it just continued to scale. And it was really fascinating to watch Sandboxx become this really neat tool that the family were gravitating towards for content and for, connectivity to basic training. How do you send love to a loved one in basic training? And the letters are really neat. Early days, they were pretty simple, but, fast forward to today, there's a lot of bells and whistles on that letter. You've got return stationery. You've got a return envelope that's pre-adjust to come right back home. You've got notifications all the way through, from when you send the letter, you can watch your letter move down to the basic training installation, wherever it is. And then as soon as that letter gets put back in the mail by, your loved one at boot camp, you can actually track that letter coming back home to you, which is a really neat feature. You can put a gift card in there. So if you want to send 25, 50, $100 to your loved one at boot camp, the gift card platform is really neat. You can get that gift card there next day. And now we've got, plethora of content that we deliver to the friends and family members of the service member while they're going through basic training. So every week, every 2 or 3 days, depending on which content journey you're on, you're getting updates about what's happening in boot camp. And that really helps not only that service member, who's going through boot camp stay connected, but also mom and dad. And if you think about it, today's generation of warfighter grew up with a smartphone in their hand. And so for them to have this distance between them that used to be digitally satisfied now becomes quite a burden on both sides. And so Sandboxx helps simplify that and make things easy with the Letters platform. And so, as the Letters platform grew, the Marine Corps was the first institution that really recognized the value of morale and retention and the opportunity to, help Marine recruits stay connected to their loved ones. So the Marine Corps was really the first that adopted Sandboxx in a big way. We then grew very organically across the other branches. The Navy then adopted us, and we're working on the Air Force and the Army right now. But really, the Marine Corps and the Navy have been the folks that have really embraced Sandboxx in a very big way. And so, today we onboard roughly 70% of the Department of Defense within the first, year of service. So whether you're in recruiting or you're going through basic training, there's a 70% chance we're going to pick you up and you'll be a Sandboxx user as well as your friends and family. And so that organic growth really, in our acquisition phase of Sandboxx was critical to allow us to get to where we are today. And, the long-term vision for us is how do we continue to develop content, features, and tools and things that help our service community be successful? Because we obviously know there's lots of friction at the beginning of the military journey, but as you look forward and as you think on life after boot camp, getting to your first job school, your first duty station, there's so many more friction points that exist. And so we've set out to solve a lot of those. And that's kind of where we've got our sights set today, is looking at the future on how do we help our service community be more successful.
That void of information creates fear, it creates anxiety, it's an unknown, and you don't know what's going on. So to have somebody step in and say, this is what's going on, I think at least gives folks something to put some of that unrest aside a little bit.
Yeah, there's a whole world of unknown for, the junior warfighters, and there's a whole world of unknown for the family members. And sometimes, those unknowns are aligned, and sometimes they're not. The thing that mom may care about could be likely is very different than, what her 18-year-old son is caring about in their military journey. And so understanding those alignments and the priorities and what they care about is really critical. And that's where our team begins to dig into what type of content is going to help this individual, whoever they are, whether they're mom or dad or the recruiter, be most successful at that given point in time along the military journey.
I don't know if you know this, but there's a YouTube video out there about Sandboxx from a guy named Francis Tapon at wanderlearn.com, who gives you such high praise and high marks. It's about a 30-minute video out there that walks through the process of how Sandboxx operates. It's pretty cool. He basically summarizes, says, letters are sent. You can track the letter. You can put a color photo in it. Comes with an envelope for the recruit to use at a self-address to return. There's blank sheets of paper. You don't have to go to the post office. I mean, I think you owe him some money for the sales that he did for your business. That was so cool.
That's really neat. We've been so fortunate there that we've had a lot of content creators make videos on how Sandboxx works, and really most of it's really been around the Letters platform. And
right,
honestly, it speaks to our team's ability to execute on creating great product when, we've got folks out in the wild that make these videos on Sandboxx. And so I'm incredibly appreciative of him making that video. And please send me that link if I haven't seen it. I'd love to see it.
I will. And you've talked a lot about sort of how Sandboxx works and the letter writing behind that, but you want to talk about your new Muster app?
Sure, absolutely.
How was that named? Was that a kernel or something? Was it Colonel Mustard?
Yes.
No,
yeah,
it could be just ketchup and mustard.
That's
right.
not spelled the same, Tom.
So when we first launched Sandboxx, one of the features that we launched with was a feature called units. And what we know about the military community is the organizational structure of the DoD also happens to be the social structure. When you think about the people that you hang out with, the people you communicate with most, whether you're the military member or the spouse, majority of the time, it revolves around that hierarchy, the command structure. And so the platoons, the battalions, the wings, the sections, the ships, the organizational structures are those social structures in many ways. So when we launched Sandboxx, one of the key features was this idea that we could help, each unit, whether it is at the lowest level or at the highest levels, stay better connected to each other and socially communicate. And it was, to this day, that's the reason why we're launching Muster. We had a lot of conviction around it, but the issue that we had was something we called the empty man in the room scenario. When Sandboxx was brand new, when we first launched the apps in 2015, you had that empty man in the room scenario where, there'd be 4 or 5 people in a battalion that were in this empty chat room that was a little rudimentary. It was a broadcast model. We had created this really interesting date time structure group to allow people to, communicate together if they shared that unit at the same date and time group. And as much as I think it was a really great idea, we didn't have the ability to put enough density behind creating real social value in these units, in this unit structure. So we ended up stripping it out of the app. I think we stripped it out of the app maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But the point behind Muster is, now that we've reached critical mass with, members and usage, and now that we have, widespread adoption across the recruiting commands, there's an opportunity to bring that communication function back into Sandboxx, and more specifically to help the recruiting woes that we're seeing today. And, everyone's read the news that, recruiting is pretty far behind.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that isn't well known is that our DoD depleted the delayed entry program, that period of time that exists before basic training, which typically was 6 to 8 months. They pulled from that pipeline in order to meet the recruiting goals, and many of them missed their recruiting goals. So that pipeline has really dried up drastically. And one of the key things about that pipeline was critical time that our junior warfighters and their families had to get ready for the military journey, to mentally, physically, financially, spiritually prepare for that military journey. And without that delayed entry program time, we foresee some issues with, recruiting folks and moving them into basic training relatively quickly. So to combat that, and knowing that we wanted to bring this social function back into Sandboxx at some point, we decided that this was a good opportunity to bring, units back, but just really kind of think about it more in the terms of how you might consider, mustering up your unit and communicating what's important to them. And so Muster, really by definition today, is a chat vehicle for the recruiting station and the recruiters and the folks that are in the delayed entry program, to allow them to connect to their recruiter, to connect to each other, and to connect the content that's going to help them be successful as they prepare for basic training. We also have a handful of tools that are built specifically for the recruiter within Muster. And so helping them better understand how many folks they have, specifically under their purview, what are the tasks that they have to get done upon certain dates as they move through the delayed entry program, and what is the content that we can deliver to those recruiters that they could then turn around and use and share with their individual delayed entry program to help, their enlistees be more successful. So, one of the ways I like to think about it is kind of like a Slack for the military, but built around the social construct of the military, with all the privacy and security and all that fun stuff that everyone likes to be concerned about. I think much of that is really now table stakes when you think about, the type of content and type of technology that we deliver to our military community, but really focused on user experience and expectation setting around how do you help the individual warfighter? How do you help the individual recruiter? And how do you help the family around the warfighter be successful?
Awesome backstory behind that too. And I think, after 7, 8 years doing this, Sam, it takes that kind of experience level and support and respect that you get from the highest level of the military to be able to endorse you and sort of back you on what you want to do to fill that gap. So good job on the muster.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean the military always has their own flavors of how they endorse it. They can't ever officially
quote
endorse,
unquote
right?
endorse.
Yes.
I shouldn't use that. Yeah.
No official U.S. government endorsement implied.
Yeah, no, it's that we have non-DoD endorsement written across like all of our content media.
Non-objection letter to Sam.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. That's right. Yeah.
Just want to give you a chance to. I've been on your website. I know Tom has. I suspect many of our audience has as well. Other things that you offer to families, to service members by way of support that they could access through your website, which we have as www.sandboxx2x's.us.
.us. Yeah.
Most of the stuff that we deliver today to our military community is specific to the individual. And so, you really have to be an app. You have to create a Sandboxx account. And once you create a Sandboxx account, we understand, are you someone who's joining the military? What branch of service? What recruiting station are you at? What job do you have in the military? Or are you, the sibling of someone who's joining the Navy? Or are you a veteran? These are the kind of segmentations that we need in order to deliver the right type of content to you. And so if we know, your basic training ship date, or if we know that you're a recruiter and you're based out of, Cincinnati, there are specific pieces of content and campaigns that we deliver to you based on understanding who you are and where you are along your military journey. So outside of the app, really the most of the value that we can derive, that anyone can derive from Sandboxx is usually on our news channel. And so, we've spent a lot of time investing in our news business and helping our team grow the footprint and grow the sphere of influence to the point now that, our YouTube channel is incredible. We get some of our videos that they'll be out for 3 or 4 weeks and they'll get over 1 million views. Most of our videos, I think, average 250,000 views within the first couple of weeks. Alex Hollings, who's our editor, does a remarkable job. We've got a series called Air Power. We've got a new series called Firepower. We've got a series coming out called Sea Power. And, these are all really well-written, well-produced pieces of content about very specific parts of time in military history, gear, airplanes, missiles, you name it. But really, really good stuff and great background on how they came to be. And so I'm just incredibly proud of what the team's done with our news and with our history and with very specific topics too. One of the areas that we want to invest in continually is, for example, veteran entrepreneurship. How do we continue to tell stories about veterans that are creating companies, or tools and resources that are really helpful for a very specific period of time as you're moving through your military journey, whether you're at the beginning or you're 4 or 5 years into a veteran lifestyle. That's, I think, an area that anybody can get into. And so I'd love to challenge everyone to take a look at what we've built on Sandboxx News, because there's a lot of great stuff there.
Oh, yeah.
It really is. It's a very deep area of the website. You can get lost in there reading, I think, and watching. So I know that you probably have 1 million of them, but wondering if you could share.
He's got 1 million views on YouTube.
He's got 1 million views, but he's probably got 1 million plus stories about families and people that they have had the chance to help. Do you have a favorite?
Oh my gosh, there are so many good ones.
Pick the best, Sam. Pick the best.
Make Tom tear up a little bit.
So let's see here. All right, here's one of my favorite stories. So we had a young man who went off to Air Force basic training, and his wife was pregnant when he left, and they tried to time it so that when he got back from basic training, she would have a month or so left, and he'd be able to be home for the birthday. long story short is he finds out, via phone call that his wife had gone into some emergency labor. The baby was fine, and he was able to get the news that everything, turned out okay. But the first time he saw his new daughter was in a Sandboxx letter.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Now I have goosebumps.
yeah,
Goosebumps.
And
that's enough.
I've got two kids, and it brings tears to my eyes to even think that you're going through basic training. The most important person in your world is struggling and has just brought the second most important person into the world.
Oh
And
yeah.
the first time you lay eyes on your baby girl is on a Sandboxx letter. I mean, that to me, that's the reason why, our team can get up in the morning.
That's very cool.
Your website is an overabundance of information for all branches of service. Can you tell us, I don't know if you had this data, Sam, but tell us how many young men and women join the military each year and how many you support through your pipeline via letters and the in-app basic training preparation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in heavy years, there's roughly 250,000 folks that join the military every year. In lighter years, and it's closer to 200. I think we're seeing last year and this year being a little sub 200,000 across the DoD. And today, we onboard roughly 70% of the U.S. military as they join, and I'd say we get about 20% to 30% of folks while they're in the delayed entry program. And the remainder will get onboarded either as they get to boot camp or as they're going through basic training via, one of our acquisition channels. So a big push for us this year is to increase that early stage adoption. So how do we get our service members onto Sandboxx? How do we get our families onto Sandboxx before basic training? And that's, really the heavy investment that we're making in muster. And that goes back to the content and the features that truly help them, make better decisions as they enter the military journey. So how do you, think about preparation for boot camp? If your mom, what are the things that we can deliver to, the mothers across Sandboxx that can help them spark a positive dinner conversation about joining the Army or joining the Navy? If you're, a sibling in Generation Alpha, what are the things that we can deliver to, a sister or brother who's in the 7th grade to help them understand how to best support their big brother or big sister that's made this monumental decision to join the military? If you're, a guidance counselor, a coach, or, a center of influence around the individual, what are some of the, great facts and figures of the stories that we could share that can help those centers of influence prop and lean into the decision to join the military for that individual? So it's a lot around, highly segmented content and personalization that we think is critical to supporting, that entire pipeline. And that's why we've made the big investment into helping recruiting this year.
I think we're going to get down to one final question, but as I was looking at some of the testimonials out there, I just wanted to share one testimonial about Sandboxx. The app is awesome. The customer support is outstanding when you need help. I highly recommend using this app to communicate with your loved ones. And then she goes on to say, I'm in love with your service. Thank you for connecting me with my son. And you also have a 4.9 stars out of 5 from Glassdoor. So it must be great to work there too. So just like you take care of our military families, you take care of your own family that works in the Sandboxx life.
Yeah. Someone said this once, and I don't know who said it, but we've got this whole saying internally that's just team, damn team. And it just comes down, to team. There's so many great people that work for great companies. And I often try and reflect on why we've been able to attract just remarkable employees. And I think it comes down to a number of things, but I love the fact that we have a lot of people on our team. We've got roughly 80 people across the organization now. And I love the fact that, basically 75, maybe 70% of the team isn't related to any military in any fashion. But you ask any single one of those folks how they feel about, what they're doing, and they will tell you that they feel like they're serving their country. And it's a remarkable thing. And I think it's something that no other organization, I mean, you guys, I think, have this as well, but not a lot of organizations have the ability to serve the military in a very unique way. And, our value proposition in delivering, content and technology that helps our military community be successful, that's our North Star. And when you start these conversations with hiring teams and with, prospective employees that's what we do, you get to an incredible place and you naturally self-select really amazing people. So I have to say that, it really comes down to team, damn team, and the way that they execute and the way that they think and the thoughtfulness around creating brilliant product it's remarkable. I mean, at this point, I'm kind of like the janitor, I put out fires,
the cleanup work.
And I just try and help smooth things out as the company is struggling to figure out what to do with its next set of resources and how to prioritize. I mean, that stuff never ends, but the team that does that on a day-to-day basis is remarkable. So yeah, team, damn team.
Sam, the last question is about your partner program. If you want to talk about that, and then we will wind down.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that we recognized years ago was that if we were going to do this the right way, and if we were truly going to become a channel for the military community, we would need to be able to bring the right set of partners to the table. And those are, in the form of advertising, in the form of really neat ways in which we can help our military community better understand and uncover, great organizations. Obviously, there's many organizations out there that want to reach the military community, but I think when it comes down to, the companies that really care about the military and the way that they impact the military, those are the ones that we love to work with, because it's not just advertising dollars at that point. It's advertising dollars that help generate revenue, that help us do what we do, and delivering some sort of value to the military community. So, obviously Armed Forces Bank has been around the block for quite some time, and you guys, deliver so much value to the military community. So
thank you.
Having y'all as a partner is incredible. And we love working with folks that do want to deliver value to the military community in the right way.
One final go-to action. I'd encourage everybody listening, all 1,253,000
in his own mind,
to go to your website to look at the stats that you did in 2022 about, the number of letters that you sent, the number of gift cards that you sent, the number of downloaded Sandboxx apps, the chats that you do, the newsletters. I mean, it's just phenomenal. The numbers are staggering. So and that's just in 1 year. That's all I'll say about that.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Tom. We're really blessed to do something really cool, and we've got a great team around us that's executing.
Well, Tom just gave people a cookie crumb trail to the last part of what we're going to do today. Yes. So hang tight with us for just another minute, Sam.
We're going to play a game.
We're going to play a game. You don't have to play, so it's not awkward and weird. So you're welcome.
I'm a big game guy. I love games.
Yeah.
It's called Team Damn Team. Brought to you by Sandboxx.
Yes. We're going to make it up on the fly. No, it's actually called the Military Minute. It's a game we're very fond of. For those of you that listened to our last podcast, our question from that podcast, we had Next Move Military on as our guest. And the question was, who is one of the very special partners of Next Move Military? And so if you answered on our podcast post on social media and you answered who? Armed Forces Bank. You are eligible to potentially be selected as the winner. And the winner has $50 in a gift card coming to them and $50 to a charity of their choice. And fast forward to today's Military Minute about Sandboxx, fittingly enough. How many letters to recruits in training and deployed service members has Sandboxx sent? So don't answer, Sam.
In the entirety, not just
in the entirety. And so if you were paying attention to Tom, which everybody doesn't always do, but if you were paying attention to Tom a moment ago, he told you where to find the answer potentially. And so watch for this podcast to drop. And when you do, comment your answer and you might be selected to win the same $50 for you and $50 for a charity of your choice.
And Jodi, if you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, go to afbank.com and subscribe to the show. Also, make sure to rate us. Leave us a comment on your favorite podcast platform, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
And thank you so much, Sam, for being here. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and Want to say the Sandboxx website one more time, www.sandboxx.us. Yes, like to say it that way. But we value your time and appreciate you sharing your story with our audience.
Jodi, Tom, thank you so much for having me.
All right,
Take care, Sam. Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.
Copyright 2022 Armed Forces Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. All non-Armed Forces Bank owned apps, websites, company names, and product names are trademarks or registered trademarks of their respective owners. Their mention does not imply any affiliation with or endorsement by Armed Forces Bank of them or their products and services. They are merely used as examples of the many available apps, companies, and websites that offer similar services. Before using any app or website, you should carefully review the terms of use, data collection, and privacy policy. Apps may have an initial cost or in-application purchase features. This information is general in nature and is not intended to be legal, tax, or financial advice. Although Armed Forces Bank believes this information to be accurate, it cannot ensure that it could change. Statements or opinions of individuals referenced herein are their own, not Armed Forces Bank. Consult an appropriate professional concerning your specific situation and respective governing bodies for applicable laws, such as IRS.gov for current tax law. Armed Forces Bank, the Armed Forces Bank logo, and the Militarily Speaking logo are registered trademarks of Armed Forces Bank.